Hi, today guys we're going to look at the Haida filter system. This is the 150mm filters, and this is just the box that they come in. It's the same for both of them, just a cardboard box. They do send them out in a nice metal case though, just to protect the filters. So they pop open like this, and you can see there's foam inside just to keep the filters safe when you're out in the field. So the filters slot in like that. I will say though that the case is quite big. You can see there's a good bit of extra headroom above and below. And they're also quite thick, so they do take up a lot of space in your bag. That is something I suppose that comes with using 150mm filters, but I definitely think using a pouch or something might be a better way to reduce size, and it might be easier to access them as well. So the two filters you're looking at here are the 6-stop filter, that's 6-stop ND, and also the circular polarizer. These fit the 150mm holders, and there's a couple of different brands out there. The one I'm using is by Haida as well. This is on the 14 to 24 Nikon lens. These kind of holders come with adapters that you can fit to the super wide angle lenses like this one, the 11 to 24 by Canon, or the 15 to 30 by Tamron. The build quality of the filters has been fantastic. They're both made of glass, so really impressive. I've had no issues with scratching. I have had Haida filters in the past, the older models, the 100mm size, and I've had no issues with them scratching, and I had them for 2 years. I definitely don't baby my gear. I throw them into my pocket or loose into my bag, things like that. Probably not what you should be doing, but I don't baby the gear, and it's been fine for me over the years anyway. There's been no issue with it scratching, so I think the build quality, if these are newer generation, is going to be even better. One difference to note between the two of these lenses is that the 6-stop here is from the NanoPro Series, so this has a nanoparticle coating on the outside of the glass. What this helps to do is remove like smudges of fingerprints and dirt and grease, and also when water contacts the surface it flows off really quickly. When they said to me pay attention to the nano coating, see if it makes any difference, I didn't think it would. I thought it was just a marketing ploy that they were trying to sell more of these by saying, oh, we've a fancy nano coating on it, but it actually does work. I was very surprised, and I'll show you actually how it works in a clip there in a minute. One issue I definitely have with this system is that it has a square circular polarizer. So you slot your circular polarizer in, it takes up one of the slots in the filter holder, so it slots in just like that. Now if you want to optimize your polarization, you're going to have to rotate it as you would with any other polarizer. That's fine. But if you're using a grad filter and on top of that, you're going to have your orientation set, decided by your grad filter. So if you're putting in your polarizer as well and you want to twist it to another angle on the polarizer, unfortunately you can't do that. You've got to decide between grad and polarizer. So if you are someone who uses a polarizer and a grad at the same time with your filters, then it's probably not the solution for you. I think there is other systems out there, like I think Wonderpan might have a system that you can twist the polarizer independent to the actual filter holder, but there's not many out there, and as far as I know that one's really expensive. These filters are a lot cheaper than other brands. I've used Lee and Format High Tech in the past, and also Nisi filters. They've all been good, but I genuinely have found these to be the best, and they're also, as far as I know anyway, the cheapest. This isn't a paid review or a sponsored review. Haida saw my original review and asked me if I'd like to have a look at their newer series, which I was obviously delighted to do. So this is just some of my honest thoughts on it. One of the most important things though is image quality, so we're going to have a look at that in the computer in a minute, and look at things like vignetting, the color cast and the sharpness, and see how these filters perform. So just to compare the nano coating then, the one on the left is the nano coated 6-stop, and the one on the right here is the polarizer, which doesn't have any nano coating. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop some water on them. This is the circular polarizer here. So you can see when I drop water it forms these streaks which stay on the surface, and it kind of spreads everywhere, so it also makes it pretty hard to clean. But if I look at the 6-stop which has the nano coating, you can see it just forms these little droplets which actually are really easy to get off. I can almost tap them off like this. They come off really easily. Whereas with the circular polarizer, if I do the same, it just stays as streaks on the surface. The nano coated one is much easier to clean. So you can probably see there now, it's pretty much clean on the surface. A small few streaks, I could give it a bit more of a rub to get rid of those. But if I go to clean the non-nano-coated polarizer, you can see it just end up spreading it everywhere across the surface, and it ends up with a really dirty filter that's quite hard to clean. It takes a lot more effort to clean it, but the nano-coated one is pretty much clean as is. So it's something that I didn't expect to make too much of a difference, but it actually does make a massive difference, and I was really impressed with it. Jumping on over into Lightroom here, just to have a couple of comparison images for you, with and without the filter, to look at the optical quality of the filters. So first one here is without the filter. This is a Holt Lighthouse in the north part of Dublin. And I have one here as well with the 6-stop filter and also the polarizing filter. So in total that gives me, in theory anyway, about 7 stops of difference. So what I've done here is I haven't made any edits at all here to the file, except for I've tried to balance the exposures more or less, and also boosted the shadows in the two of them, just so we can see the detail for sharpness comparisons. Looking at the strength of the filter first, here 15 seconds versus 10 seconds. Now again, take into account that this was boosted by half stop, that's about 7 stops in the difference, which is about right, because we've got the polarizing filter which gives us about a stop, maybe a little bit more, and then the 6-stop. So they are rated, 6-stop is rated for 6 stops, and it's giving us about 6 stops. That's something that I've noticed in the past with other filters, that they can give you a little bit more, a little bit less than what they're rated for. It's not really that big an issue, but just once you know what your own filter actually does, so you can calculate your exposure properly in the field. Okay, so looking at this then, the first thing to note is that the color temperatures of both are neutralized, so they have the exact same settings, but there is definitely a difference. I think this one looks a little bit warmer to my eye. Yeah, maybe a small bit more magenta you can see in the clouds as well, but not really anything too major. You'd easily be able to bring that back. Like if we cool this down a little bit, take that, it looks pretty similar then. That was just a very quick edit. Now the next thing, if we open these two up, compare the two of them, if I zoom into 100% then, because I'm using the screen recorder, the computer might be a little bit slow. Hopefully it'll zoom eventually though. Yeah, okay. So just to look at sharpness for the two images, so the one on the right here is without the filters, and the one on the left is with the filters. Looking at them sharpness wise, they look very, very similar. I think maybe the one with the filter is a tiny bit less sharp. I will say as well that on this day that I took the shot, it was very windy, so there might have been a little bit of camera shake, but I think it's pretty much negligible. Like, they look almost the exact same. So sharpness wise, very, very happy. The other major optical thing then to look at, I think, with filters is, especially ones this wide, you can see, so this was shot in the 14-24 at 16mm. You would think that maybe you could start getting a little bit of vignetting. Now I've tested them at 14mm, haven't seen any vignetting, and here at 16mm you can see nothing. So really, really good in terms of vignetting. Maybe just a small bit of a color cast, and nothing really to say as well in terms of sharpness. So we'll have a look at the other images there now. So this next one, it's a shot from Dublin. It's the Samuel Beckett Bridge and the Convention Centre here on the right. So the shot on the left here is without the filters, without the filter, and the one on the right has just the 6-stop in this case. So it was pretty dark. You can see I was getting a 1.3 second exposure as it was, and I managed to get 83 seconds, probably a couple of minutes later as well, out of just the 6-stop. So a pretty significant difference in the exposure time. Looking at the two files, I have, again, if I jump back into the develop module, I've made sure that the white balance of the two files is exactly the same. So you can see it was 8800 and 8800 here again. And again, I've boosted the shadows up just so that you can see all the detail. So if I compare the two of these now again, you can definitely see that color cast again. If you look at the one without the filter here, especially down here, it definitely looks a little bit more magenta cast, I think, on this side. Tiny bit warmer and a bit more magenta like we saw in the previous shot. Now again, to note, these are 15mm, so not quite as wide as the lens goes, but no vignetting present at all. So the only optical issue, I would say, if you could even call it an issue with these filters, is a tiny bit of a color cast, maybe kind of a slightly warm magenta is cast, but nothing really major. Sharpness wise, again, if we zoom in on the two of these images, now again, take into consideration that this one was an 83 second exposure, so there's a decent chance for camera shaking these, but once they load, yeah, again, it looks very, very comparable sharpness wise. Yeah, I think there's no complaints there really. They look identical to my eye anyway, at least. If we come down to the foreground here, yeah, looks exactly the same. I think they're perfectly sharp. So optically, really, really impressed with these filters. No complaints really. There's a small bit of color cast, which if it's a big issue for you, you now know, but I don't think the amount of color cast that these has is anything major at all, and it's perfectly acceptable for me. So just going to have a look at the shots with the polarizer only now. Looking at the settings is a little bit complicated, but I had 0.6 of a second at f11. This is with the polarizer, and then without the polarizer it was a third of a second, so stop greater. But I did close down my aperture to f13. This is just when I was trying out settings, but I do think it is a bit brighter, so I reduced it by a third of a stop. So overall, I think the polarizer has given me about a stop of darkening going from shot to shot with and without it. So looking at the two shots, it's pretty clear the effect that the polarizer has. If you look especially at the rocks and the water, it really takes off all the glare. And as well with the colour in the trees, there's some autumnal colour starting to come out, and it really brings that out, so it gives it a nice bit of pop. Definitely it works pretty well on this. This is shot at 24mm on the 1424, so you can see there's nice polarization going across the entire frame, and it works pretty well in this scenario here. Looking at sharpness then, if I zoomed in, this is actually part of a focus stack. So in this part I was focusing on these rocks here, so I can get a comparison image between the two of these here. And on the right hand side is obviously with no polarizer. The left hand side then is with the polarizer. So once Lightroom loads, yeah, you can see the difference here. Polarization effect is pretty clear, but the sharpness personally I think is pretty much identical. But in the area here, all where both of them were focused around, it's tack sharp, looks really, really well. In both files, I don't think there's any difference between using the polarizer and without. So overall, looking at the polarization, happy with that. I don't really see much vignetting as well. It's a little bit darker in this file, so I think it just looks a bit darker overall, but I don't think there's any vignetting, and I've never noticed any vignetting at 14mm as well. Overall then, really happy with the optical quality of the polarizer. I think it's not going to affect sharpness, and it works well in terms of its polarization. So happy with that. So just to summarize then, a couple of the shots up on the screen at the moment are some of the ones that I've taken with the filters. I've been really happy with them. The 6-stop, the optical quality is fantastic. There's a small bit of maybe a magenta, slightly warmish cast from it, but the polarizer didn't notice any cast. Both of them in terms of sharpness have been excellent. I haven't noticed any difference, and vignetting as well has been brilliant. So really happy with the optical quality of them. Also, they've had no scratches or marks or anything like that, so they seem to be very well made, and they're going to last. Like I said, I have the other two older Haida filters for almost 2 years, and I've never had an issue with them. So I definitely expect these to last. The nano coating that's on the 6-stop is excellent. I do wish it was on the polarizer though, because it does make a big difference in allowing the dirt and water and things like that to just flow off the glass with no issue. So I would like if they brought out a polarizer with that. And obviously there is still the issue with the polarizer using grads and not being able to turn with the holder, but that's more of a holder design than the actual filters themselves. But it is something to take into account if you are looking at this system. So yeah, all in all, very happy with the filters, and I would definitely recommend them. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below. And like I said, that review of the actual holder itself is also in the description.